Something interesting popping up in Braamfontein here in Johannesburg recently, a literal hive of creativity, which serves as an incubator and a collaborative workspace for young creative entrepreneurs. The J&B Hive is on a quest to become the home of creative entrepreneurship, to give the change makers of the future the tools, the skills, the resources that they need to succeed. So here to tell us more about it is Zumi Njongwe, Marketing and Innovations Director at Diageo, and the Managing Director of Yellow TV, Radili Mokone, one of the creative startups benefiting from the initiative. And I wish I was young enough to do this, Zumi, because it sounds really interesting. What exactly have you created, and what was the thinking behind it?
The thinking behind J&B Hive was for us to really contribute to creating a win-win partnership with our communities in which we work and live and do business, together with our brand, creating, as you say, an incubator and a space where young, flourishing, creative, bright minds can get together to collaborate to start their own businesses. I don't need to tell you that in South Africa, this is really, really critical given our high unemployment rate. And so I think as corporates and as Diageo, we feel a real need to play a role in really driving and creating employment, because we know that the formal job sector doesn't have enough jobs to really absorb the number of young people that we've got in this country as they come out of school.
Why specifically is this important to Diageo, though? What benefit does your brand derive from going into this space?
The partnership really is a great fit, because J&B as a brand was a brand born of collaboration. The J stands for Giacomo Giusterini, who was an Italian in London, who partnered with a guy, an Englishman called Alfred Brooks, for the B in the J&B. And the brand was made famous by a Scottishman in the USA called Eddie Tatum. So we live and breathe collaboration, and that is what the brand is about. So we thought that would be a great fit with creating this kind of incubation.
Lovely story. Radila, I bet you didn't know that story. It's the first time I've heard it.
No, I did have my look.
Did you have a look?
I have.
What is Yellow TV?
Yellow TV is an advertising platform. We install tablets inside Ubers and Taxify vehicles in between the driver and the passenger seat, so people can enjoy content. They can check things that are happening around the area. We do geo-targeted advertising. And the other great benefit about it is that we compensate the drivers for having the unit in their vehicles. So we communicate brands' messages to people moving from point A to point B using e-hailing vehicles.
How did you come by this initiative, and what benefit have you derived from it as a startup brand?
It came up with one of my business partners. He saw the online application, and immediately we saw that there's room for us to grow in that space, you know. When we were first introduced to J&B, we really had the idea of seeing that a sponsor is needed to be able to get this off the ground. We developed the app in-house ourselves and came up with the concept and had to go to them with a proof of concept. So once we arrived at them with the proof of concept, J&B Hive was ready to help us multiply that.
So Zumi, what I'm also hearing here is that you've really got to work hard in the beginning in order to get noticed, to derive benefit from the space that you are offering entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Correct. So
it's not anyone can walk in. I mean, there's a real process here.
Absolutely not. We back people who back themselves. So you've got to come in, as Radile has said, with a great concept of what you've done, and you have to prove that to us. But apart from that, you also have to be in the creative space, because the benefit for us as well is that these young entrepreneurs make our brand famous when they succeed. So that's the win-win part of it, right? So we support them and we incubate them and we grow their businesses, and in turn, they help make our brand famous.
How many people have you helped?
So far, we've got about 45 businesses in J&B Hive. Our aim is to get to about 100 in the next 2 years.
We all know that starting a startup is impossibly difficult. I think I've heard about the failure rate before, something like 97% might be there or thereabouts. Bit of a risk for you as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So why is the risk worth it?
It's worth it for a number of reasons. One is we're really clear that in order for us to start talking to consumers and millennials, young millennials differently, those days of one-way dialogue are long gone, right? And these guys and the entrepreneurs are the ones that are going to take J&B and make it famous going forward. And so we're willing to take that risk on them. We also believe in growing entrepreneurship in South Africa as a business that takes our role seriously. And we know that government is not going to do that on their own. And so that for us is really important.
Radile, one of the challenges that you've got is it's all very well to be holding on to these Diageo apron strings at some point, but the reality is that's not what you want. You need the leg up, you need the funding, but at some point you've got to go out on your own. When do you cut the strings?
Within this next financial year. So for the first round, we've been with J&B Hive since last year. Now we're going into our second financial year, which will be in March 2019. And when we get into that financial year, we will be in a different stage. We would have received our second funding, and that would allow us to scale out our business. So once scale is achieved, we will be on our feet.
How close are you to achieving that scale, do you think?
We're very close. We're hitting 100. We're going for 100 cars within this year, so absolutely close to hitting that. Yeah.
And obviously, this is something that you want to run in perpetuity, or for as long as you possibly can. How do people contact you? How do they become part of this, given what I'm sensing is a fairly onerous process of jurisdiction before you begin?
They can apply online. We have 2 selection periods annually. They can go to jnbhivejohannesburg.com and they put in their application through that process. If they get shortlisted, they then come before a panel of a number of different experts who then judge whether or not they will make it. So
how would you adjudicate that? You'd be sitting down with, would this be an in-house panel?
It is an in-house panel.
And what are they looking for?
Very simple things. One is, are you a creative entrepreneur? So you have to be in the creative space. If you're not in the creative space, we don't support that. Secondly, you have to be over 18 years old, given the nature of our products. And thirdly, you have to have a proof of concept. That's it, Jeremy.
Folks, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
I wish you both well, and particularly Yellow TV, strength to what you're doing. Zumi Njongwe of Diageo and Radile Mokone of Yellow TV. Thank you very much indeed. Coming up on the program, how a magazine is disrupting newsstands by changing the consumer journey and incorporating QR codes into its traditional brand space.